Marcus dove in front of the truck. His body slammed into the blind girl, throwing them both sideways as 18 wheels screamed past close enough to rip the shirt off his back. He was 8 years old, homeless, starving. The girl was 6, completely blind, stumbling toward death on a Phoenix highway. He'd never seen her before, didn't know her name, didn't know her father was the most dangerous man in Arizona. He just knew she was about to die, and nobody else was stopping it. That split-second decision would destroy his invisible life forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us what city you're watching from in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. Marcus learned early that invisible children live longer. Not the magical kind of invisible, the desperate kind. The kind where you memorize which alleys the cops skip, which restaurant dumpsters have food that won't make you sick, and which street corners forget you exist long enough for you to breathe. He was 8 years old. He'd been on the streets since 5. 3 years of learning that the world doesn't see children like him. 3 years of understanding that survival meant staying small, staying quiet, staying out of everyone's way. Phoenix in July was a furnace. The pavement burned through his worn-out sneakers. The air shimmered with heat that could drop a grown man. But Marcus moved through it like he'd been born for this. Because in a way, he had been. His mother left when he was 4, just walked out one night and never came back. His father lasted another year before the drinking took him somewhere Marcus couldn't follow. Foster care was supposed to catch kids like him. It didn't. He slipped through the cracks at 5 years old and never stopped falling. "Hey kid, get away from there." Marcus jerked back from the dumpster behind the Chinese restaurant. The cook stood in the doorway, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his face twisted with disgust. "Sorry," Marcus mumbled, already backing away. I know what you were doing. Get out of here before I call someone." Marcus ran. He always ran. It was easier than explaining, easier than begging, easier than watching people's faces shift from annoyance to pity to that particular kind of discomfort that made them look away. He found a shaded spot behind a laundromat and counted his morning's collection. 14 bottles, 6 cans, maybe enough for $1.50 at the recycling center, maybe enough for a burger if he waited until the afternoon when the fast food places started throwing away the lunch rush leftovers. His stomach cramped. He'd eaten yesterday. Half a sandwich someone left on a park bench. The day before that, he'd found an unopened bag of chips in a trash can. He could go another few hours. A dog appeared at the edge of the alley, skinny, ribs showing, eyes that had seen too much just like Marcus's. "Hey, buddy." The dog approached slowly, cautiously. It had learned the same lessons Marcus had. Trust gets you hurt. Kindness is usually a trap. Marcus reached into his backpack and pulled out the only food he had, a packet of crackers he'd been saving. He opened it, broke one in half, and held it out. "Here, you look worse than me." The dog sniffed, then gently took the cracker from his palm. "Yeah, I know, it's not much, but it's something, right?" He fed the dog 3 more crackers, keeping only 2 for himself. An old homeless woman across the street watched him with knowing eyes. "That stupid boy," she called out. "Feeding strays when you barely got enough for yourself. He's hungry. So are you." Marcus shrugged. "I'll find more." The woman shook her head. "Kids like you don't last. Too soft. This city eats soft." Marcus had heard it before, from other homeless people, from the older kids who'd learned to steal and fight and do whatever it took. They all said the same thing. Kindness was a luxury. Compassion was weakness. The streets rewarded hardness and punished everything else. But Marcus didn't know how to be hard. Something in him refused to calcify no matter how many times the world tried to break him. He finished his crackers and stood up. The recycling center closed at 6. He needed to find more bottles. Across Phoenix, in a building with working air conditioning and clean floors, 6-year-old Lily Reyes sat in the therapy room at the Bright Horizons Center for Blind Children. She'd been blind since birth. The world existed for her in sounds and textures and smells. She knew her mother's perfume, her father's heavy footsteps, the specific rumble of his motorcycle that was different from all the others. "Very good, Lily," Miss Patricia said, guiding her fingers across the Braille page. "Can you read the next line?" Lily traced the raised dots carefully. "The cat sat on the mat." "Perfect. You're getting so fast." Lily smiled. She liked Miss Patricia. Her voice was warm and patient, and she never got frustrated when Lily made mistakes. Not like some of the other teachers who sighed too loudly or moved her hands too roughly. "Miss Patricia, when is my daddy coming?" "Your handler will pick you up at 4, sweetheart. Just like always." "But I want my daddy." Miss Patricia's voice softened. "I know, honey. But your daddy is very busy. Rosa will take good care of you." Lily nodded, but something felt wrong today. She couldn't explain it. Just a heaviness in her chest, like the air before a thunderstorm. Her father always said she had instincts, that being blind made her other senses sharper, made her feel things other people missed. Today, she felt afraid. "Can we practice walking again?" she asked. "Of course. Let's get your cane." Miss Patricia helped her stand and placed the white cane in her hand. They'd been practicing mobility training for 6 months now. Lily was getting better at counting steps, listening for obstacles, building a mental map of spaces she couldn't see. They walked down the hallway. Lily's cane tapped rhythmically against the floor. Left, right, left, right. 20 steps to the water fountain. 30 more to the reception desk. 42 to the front door. "Excellent, Lily." The explosion came from nowhere. A sound so loud it erased everything else. The floor shook. The lights, not that Lily could see them, flickered and died. And then came the screaming. "Fire, everyone out, fire!" Miss Patricia's hand grabbed Lily's arm, but the grip was panicked, too tight. "Miss Patricia, what's happening?" "We have to go, Lily, right now." More screaming, running footsteps. Lily could smell it now, smoke thick and chemical burning her throat. Her chest tightened with terror. "I can't see Miss Patricia, I can't." "I know, sweetheart, I know. Just hold on to me." But there were other children. Lily could hear them crying, screaming, stumbling in the darkness. Miss Patricia was being pulled in different directions, trying to help everyone at once. "Take Tommy. He's right there. I've got Sarah Patricia. Where's Michael? Everyone stay calm. Head for the exits." Lily felt Miss Patricia's hand slip from hers. "Miss Patricia." No answer. Just chaos. Bodies pushing past her, smoke filling her lungs, heat pressing against her skin. "Miss Patricia." Someone shoved her. She fell hard, her palms scraping against the floor, her cane clattering away from her. She reached for it frantically, but all she felt was shoes and legs and a stampede of panic that didn't stop. "Help me, someone, please help me." Her voice was lost in the noise. She was on the ground in the dark in a building that was burning, and no one could hear her. Somehow she found her cane. Somehow she got to her feet. The crowd had thinned. Most people had already run toward the exits, but Lily didn't know where the exits were anymore. She'd been knocked sideways, turned around, her mental map shattered. She started walking, tapping her cane, counting steps, but nothing made sense anymore. The hallway felt wrong. The walls weren't where they should be. A door. Her cane found a door. She pushed through it and felt hot air hit her face. Not the clean heat of the building, but outside air. Phoenix summer air. She'd found an exit, but she had no idea which one. "Hello, is anyone there?" Her voice echoed back at her. No one answered. Lily started walking. It was the only thing she knew how to do. Her father always said if she got lost, stay still and wait. But she could still smell smoke, still hear sirens in the distance. She needed to get away from the fire. Tap, tap, tap. Her cane swept the ground in front of her. She felt gravel under her shoes, then pavement, then something that vibrated slightly, a road. A loud horn blasted past her. Lily screamed and stumbled backward. A car. A car had just barely missed her. She'd walked into a street. She was standing in traffic and she couldn't see any of it. "Help me, someone, please help me!" Another horn, tires screeching, voices shouting. "Get out of the road, kid! What's wrong with her?" "She's blind. Can't you see the cane?" Lily froze, completely frozen. Her body wouldn't move. Her brain wouldn't work. She could hear engines all around her, metal moving at speeds that could kill her, and she couldn't see any of it. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't move. I can't." A truck horn. So loud it rattled her bones. Coming closer, closer. She closed her eyes. Not that it made a difference. Then something hit her. Marcus had given up on finding more bottles. The heat was too brutal. His head pounded. His vision kept blurring at the edges. He needed water, needed shade, needed to rest before his body shut down completely. He was cutting through the alley behind the medical complex when he heard it. Screaming. High-pitched. Terrified. The kind of scream that came from a child who was facing something beyond their understanding. Marcus stopped. Every survival instinct told him to keep moving. Other people's problems weren't his problems. Getting involved meant getting noticed. Getting noticed meant trouble. But that scream... He ran toward it. What he saw made his blood freeze. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, standing in the middle of a 4-lane road, cars swerving around her horns, blaring drivers shouting. She wasn't moving, just standing there, white cane in her hand, face streaked with tears and soot. And a truck was coming. A delivery truck that wasn't slowing down because the driver was looking at his phone and didn't see her yet. Marcus didn't think. His legs moved on their own, across the parking lot, into the street. The truck driver finally looked up, eyes going wide, hand slamming the horn. Marcus reached her first. He tackled her, wrapped his arms around her small body and threw them both sideways. They hit the pavement hard, rolling his back, scraping against the asphalt. The truck's horn screamed past them so close he felt the wind of it on his face. Then it was gone. Marcus lay there, his heart trying to break through his ribcage, his arms still wrapped around the crying girl. "Are you okay? Hey, are you hurt?" She was sobbing. Great gasping sobs that shook her whole body. I couldn't see. I couldn't see anything. The fire and the smoke. And I couldn't find Miss Patricia and... Hey! Marcus sat up carefully, keeping his hands on her shoulders. Steady. Gentle. The way he'd learned to calm frightened animals. "You're okay. I got you. You're off the road. You're safe." "I can't see you," she whimpered. "I can't see anything." "That's okay. You don't have to see me. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Her hands reached out, touching his face, his hair, his shoulders, learning him through touch. "Who are you?" "I'm Marcus. What's your name?" "Lily." "Okay, Lily. Can you tell me what happened?" The story came out in fragments. Fire, explosion, chaos, losing Miss Patricia, finding a door, walking until she couldn't hear the smoke anymore. Then the cars. Marcus looked around. No adults were rushing to help. The cars that had almost killed her were already gone, drivers too busy to stop. The building behind them was far away, sirens still wailing in that direction. "Do you know where you live, Lily? Do you know your address?" "My daddy's compound. It's far away. Rosa drives me." "Who's Rosa?" "My handler. She picks me up from therapy, but I don't know where she is. I don't know where anyone is." Lily started crying again. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. This girl was alone, scared, completely helpless in a world she couldn't see, and no one was coming for her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his last 2 crackers, the ones he'd been saving for himself. "Here," he said, pressing them into her hand. "I know it's not much, but you should eat something." Lily's fingers closed around the crackers. She took a small bite, still crying, but calmer now. Something about having food, about being touched gently, about hearing a voice that wasn't shouting. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't mention it." "Are you an adult?" Marcus almost laughed. "No, I'm 8. You sound older." "I get that a lot." Marcus looked around again, his mind working through the problem. The girl needed help, real help, the kind he couldn't provide. She needed adults' phones, police, someone who could get her home. Lily, do you know your daddy's phone number? I think so. Miss Patricia made me memorize it. Okay, good. That's really good. We need to find a phone. Can you walk? I think so. He helped her stand. Her legs were shaky. Her knees scraped from the fall, but she could move. He picked up her white cane and placed it in her hand. Okay, I'm going to help you walk. Put your other hand on my shoulder. I'll be your eyes. Her small hand found his shoulder and gripped tight. Don't let go of me, she said. Please, don't let go. I won't. I promise. They started moving. The first store they tried was closed. The second had a no loitering sign, and a cashier who took one look at Marcus's dirty clothes and shook his head before they even got inside. We just need to use the phone, Marcus said. Please, she's lost. She needs to call her dad. No phone for homeless kids. Get out of here. But I said get out. Marcus led Lily away. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from anger. A hot, helpless rage at a world that couldn't be bothered to help a blind 6-year-old because the kid asking for help had dirt on his face. Why won't they help us? Lily asked. Because, Marcus didn't know how to explain it. Because people don't always do the right thing. My daddy always does the right thing. Yeah. What does your daddy do? He rides motorcycles. He has a club. A lot of men who wear leather, and they're really loud, but really nice. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Motorcycles. A club. Men in leather. Lily, what's your daddy's name? Dominic, but everyone calls him Duke. The cold spread through his entire body. Duke Reyes, the Iron Wolves MC. Every kid on the streets knew that name. Every homeless person, every small-time criminal, every cop who looked the other way in certain neighborhoods. The Iron Wolves controlled half of Phoenix's underground. They were feared, respected, and absolutely not the kind of people you messed with. And Marcus was standing in the middle of the street holding their president's blind daughter. Lily, he said slowly, your daddy is Duke Reyes. Uh-huh. Do you know him? Marcus's heart hammered. If the Iron Wolves found out he had their princess, if they thought for even a second that he'd taken her. He looked at Lily, 6 years old, blind, terrified, alone. He looked at the empty street, no help coming, no one who cared. He could leave her here, find a safe spot, tell her to wait, and disappear before anyone connected him to this. Self-preservation. Survival. The only law that mattered on the streets. But Lily's hand was gripping his shoulder like he was the only solid thing in her world. Marcus, are you still there? Yeah, he heard himself say. I'm still here. I'm scared. I know. Me too. Can you take me home? Every instinct screamed no. Every survival lesson he'd learned in 3 years told him to run. Walking into an Iron Wolves compound with the president's missing daughter was suicide. They'd never believe a homeless kid found her by accident. They'd think he took her. They'd think he wanted ransom or reward or something worse. But Lily was crying again. Soft, quiet tears that ran down her soot-stained face. I want my daddy, she whispered. I just want my daddy. Marcus thought about all the nights he'd spent wishing for the same thing. All the times he'd cried himself to sleep wanting anyone to come looking for him. No one ever did. But someone was looking for Lily. Someone loved her enough to tear the city apart. Okay, he said. I'll take you home. Promise. I promise. They walked. Marcus had no idea where the Iron Wolves compound was. He'd heard rumors East Side Industrial District somewhere past the railroad tracks. But rumors weren't directions, and Phoenix was huge, and every step was taking them further from the areas he knew. Lily held onto his shoulder. She'd stopped crying, but she hadn't let go. Her white cane tapped the ground in front of them, a rhythm that matched their footsteps. Are you hungry? She asked. I'm okay. You gave me your food. You must be hungry. Marcus's stomach ached. He ignored it. I said I'm okay. My daddy says people who give away their food are either saints or fools. Which one do you think I am? Lily was quiet for a moment. I think you're nice. Nicer than most people. Yeah, well, don't tell anyone. It'd ruin my reputation. She almost smiled. Almost. They passed through a neighborhood Marcus didn't recognize. The buildings got rougher. The people on the street corners watched them with hard eyes. 2 kids, one blind, one obviously homeless, carrying nothing worth stealing. An older man blocked their path. Hey, little man, you lost. Marcus kept walking, trying to angle around him. No, sir, just passing through. That your sister? Yeah. She blind? Please just let us pass. The man stepped closer. His breath smelled like cheap alcohol. What's the matter, boy? I'm just trying to help. Where are you taking her? Lily's hand tightened on Marcus's shoulder. She could hear the threat in the man's voice, even if she couldn't see it. Marcus. It's okay, Marcus said, but his voice was shaking now. We're fine. The man laughed. You don't look fine. You look like a little street rat dragging some rich girl through the wrong part of town. Where'd you get her, huh? What's the game? Another man appeared, then a third. Marcus's heart dropped. 3 adults, all bigger than him, all looking at Lily like she was merchandise. Look, we don't want trouble, Marcus said. We're just trying to get her home. Home where? The Iron Wolves compound. The men exchanged glances. Something flickered across their faces. Fear, recognition. Iron Wolves? You serious? She's Duke Reyes's daughter. Silence. Then the first man burst out laughing. That's a good story, kid. Real good. But I ain't buying it. Iron Wolf's princess wouldn't be walking around with a dirty little street boy. I'm telling the truth. And I'm telling you to hand her over. There's probably a reward. We'll take her from here. Marcus stepped back, pulling Lily with him. No. No. The man's face darkened. You think you got a choice here, boy? She's not going anywhere without me. The man lunged. Marcus pushed Lily behind him and ducked. The man's fist caught the top of his head, a glancing blow that still made stars explode across his vision. He stumbled but didn't fall. Run, Lily! I can't see. The second man grabbed Marcus from behind, arms around his chest squeezing until he couldn't breathe. He kicked, thrashed, fought with everything he had. Hold him still. Grab the girl, Lily was screaming. That same terrible scream from the road. Marcus twisted his head and bit down on the arm holding him. The man howled and let go. Marcus grabbed Lily's hand and ran. This way, keep running. They sprinted down the street. Lily stumbled, but Marcus caught her, practically dragging her now. Behind them, the men cursed and gave chase. An alley. Marcus spotted an alley between 2 buildings. He pulled Lily into it, pressing them both against the wall behind a dumpster. Don't make a sound, he breathed into her ear. Please, Lily, not a sound. She clamped her hand over her mouth. Her whole body trembled against his. Footsteps pounded past the alley entrance. Where'd they go? I don't know, split up. The footsteps faded. Marcus counted to 100 before he let himself breathe again. Are they gone? Lily whispered. I think so. Who were they? What? Bad people, but we're okay now. You saved me again. Marcus slumped against the wall. His head throbbed where he'd been hit. His arms ached. His lungs burned from running. That's twice you saved me, Lily said quietly. Who's counting? I am. She found his hand in the darkness and squeezed it. I'm going to tell my daddy. I'm going to tell him everything you did. Marcus didn't know what to say. No one had ever thanked him for anything. No one had ever noticed him enough to be grateful. We should keep moving, he said. It's getting dark. They walked on. A gas station appeared through the heat haze, fluorescent lights buzzing in the growing darkness. Marcus's legs were ready to give out, but the gas station meant possibilities. Water, maybe food, maybe someone who would actually help. He led Lily to the side of the building where an outdoor faucet dripped into a cracked basin. Drink, he said, cupping water in his hands and holding it to her lips. She drank greedily. So did he. The water was warm and tasted like rust, but it was the best thing he'd had in days. Inside the gas station, a radio crackled with static. Marcus caught fragments of words through the dirty windows. Massive search underway. 6-year-old Lily Reyes, daughter of Dominic Duke Reyes. Iron Wolves MC offering $50,000 reward. Marcus froze. $50,000. $50,000 for a homeless kid who'd found a lost girl. That money could change everything. A real home. Real food. A chance to be something other than invisible. But that wasn't how it would play out. He knew it with a certainty that lived in his bones. If he walked into that gas station and told them he had the missing girl, they wouldn't see a hero. They'd see a dirty street kid with stolen merchandise. They'd call the cops. The cops would call the Iron Wolves. And someone, the cops, the bikers, someone would decide Marcus was the problem, not the solution. $50,000. He looked at Lily, sitting on the ground, hugging her knees, her white cane across her lap. She trusted him. Marcus, what's wrong? Nothing, just thinking. About what? About how to get you home. Do you know where we're going now? Yeah, he lied. I think I do. He asked the gas station attendant for directions to the Iron Wolves compound. The man looked at him like he'd lost his mind. You serious, kid? Dead serious. It's 4 miles east, past the railroad tracks industrial district. Look for the fence with the wolf heads. The man paused. You sure you want to go there? No, Marcus said honestly, but I'm going anyway. 4 miles. In Phoenix summer heat, with a blind 6-year-old who'd already walked more than she'd ever walked in her life. Marcus made a decision. Lily, I'm going to carry you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're exhausted, and we still have a long way to go. He knelt down. Climb on my back. Put your arms around my neck. She hesitated, then did as he asked. Her small arms wrapped around his shoulders, her legs locked around his waist. The stuffed bunny she'd somehow kept through everything pressed between them. Is this okay? She asked. It's perfect. Hold on tight. He started walking. She was heavier than he expected, or maybe he was weaker than he wanted to admit. Every step sent pain shooting through his legs. His shoulders screamed. His back felt like it might break, but Lily's breath was warm against his neck. Her trust was absolute. He kept walking. 1 mile. His vision blurred. He blinked hard, forcing his eyes to focus. 2 miles. A car slowed beside them. The driver rolled down his window. You kids need help. Marcus's heart leaped. Finally, someone who cared. Yes, please. She's lost. She needs to get to the Iron Wolves compound. Her dad is... The man's face changed. That look Marcus knew too well. The look people got when they saw his clothes. His dirty face, the desperation in his eyes. Right. Good luck with that. The car drove away. Marcus stood in the exhaust fumes, Lily's weight bearing down on him, and felt something crack inside his chest. Why didn't he help? Lily asked. Because he didn't want to, Marcus said. Because some people just don't. That's sad. Yeah, it is. He kept walking. 3 miles. The railroad tracks appeared in the darkness. Beyond them, industrial buildings loomed like sleeping giants. Somewhere out there was the Iron Wolves compound. Somewhere out there was Lily's father losing his mind with worry. Marcus's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, barely managing to set Lily down before he fell completely. Marcus. I'm okay, he gasped. Just need a minute. You're not okay. You're shaking. She was right. His whole body was trembling. When had he last eaten? Really eaten 2 days ago. Lily's hand found his face. Her fingers traced his cheeks, his forehead, his cracked lips. You're sick, she said. You need help. I'll be fine. No, you need help now. Lily, I can hear it in your voice. You sound like my grandma did before. She stopped. You need to rest. I can't. We're almost there. I just need to. We can rest. Just for a little while. Then we'll keep going. Marcus wanted to argue, but his body had already made the decision for him. He slumped against the railroad track, his eyes closing. Marcus, don't leave me. I won't, he mumbled. I promised. Promise again. I promise. Lily curled up beside him. Two lost children in the Phoenix darkness holding on to each other because they had nothing else to hold on to. Marcus didn't know how long they lay there. Minutes, maybe an hour, long enough for the shaking to stop, long enough for a little strength to seep back into his legs. A sound pulled him back to consciousness. Engines, not car engines. Something different. Something that rumbled deep and low, a vibration he could feel in his chest before he heard it with his ears. Motorcycles. Marcus's eyes snapped open. In the distance, headlights swept across the industrial district. The rumble grew louder. More bikes. A lot more. They were looking for her. Lily. He shook her shoulder. Lily, wake up. We have to go. Right now. He pulled her onto his back again. His muscles screamed in protest, but he ignored them. The compound couldn't be far now. The bikes were close. He started running. The rumble of engines surrounded them, sweeping through the industrial district in a coordinated search pattern. Marcus could see them now, headlights cutting through the darkness, chrome-gleaming leather-clad figures atop machines that sounded like thunder. He ran toward them. A single headlight broke away from the group, turning toward them. The engine roared louder, closer. Marcus stopped running. The bike skidded to a halt 10 feet away. The rider dismounted in one fluid motion, reaching for something at his hip. Don't move. Marcus didn't move. Couldn't move. His legs had finally given up completely. The rider pulled out a flashlight, shining it directly at them. Holy! The man's voice cracked. Duke, over here. I found her. I found her. More engines. More lights. Bikes appearing from every direction, converging on them like a wave. Marcus heard a sound that cut through everything else. A single engine, louder than the rest, approaching at a speed that should have been impossible. A Harley roared up behind him, and everything Marcus thought he knew about his life was about to change forever. The Harley's engine cut to silence. Marcus couldn't see the rider's face. The headlight blinded him, turning everything into white glare and black shadows. But he could feel it, the weight of attention, the intensity of a stare that seemed to burn through him. Daddy. Lily's voice was small and certain. She couldn't see anything, but she'd heard that engine 1,000 times. She knew its sound the way other children knew their mother's heartbeat. Daddy. The figure moved. Fast. Faster than Marcus thought possible for someone that size. One moment the man was on the bike, the next he was 3 feet away, close enough for Marcus to finally see him. Duke Reyes was massive, 6'4" shoulders like a bull, arms covered in tattoos that told stories Marcus couldn't read. His leather cut hung open patches and insignia marking him as president. His face was weathered hard, carved by years of living outside society's rules. But his eyes were wild, desperate. Wet with tears he wasn't trying to hide. Lily. The word came out broken. Baby girl. Daddy. Marcus felt Lily's arms release from his neck. Felt her weight shift as Duke's hands, huge hands that could probably crush a man's skull, lifted her from his back with impossible gentleness. Then she was in her father's arms. Duke collapsed to his knees right there in the dirt, clutching his daughter like she might disappear if he loosened his grip for even a second. His whole body shook. This man, this terrifying legend that made grown criminals cross the street, was sobbing into his little girl's hair. I thought I lost you. His voice cracked on every word. I thought, God, Lily, I thought. I'm okay, Daddy. I'm okay. Marcus saved me. Who? Marcus. He found me. He carried me. He fought the bad men. Duke's head snapped up. His tear-streaked face turned toward Marcus, and suddenly those wild eyes were focused entirely on him. Marcus stood frozen. His legs trembled, his vision swam. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his body had nothing left to give. He watched Duke take in every detail. The torn clothes, the dirty face, the bruises forming on his arms, the absolute exhaustion that made him sway on his feet. "You." Duke's voice was rough. "You're Marcus." "Yes, sir." "You found my daughter." "Yes, sir." "Where?" "She was in the road, by the medical complex. She couldn't see, and there was a truck coming, and I grabbed her. I didn't know who she was. I just knew she needed help." Duke stared at him. The other bikers had formed a circle around them now. 30, maybe 40 men, all watching, all waiting to see what their president would do. "How old are you?" 8. Something flickered across Duke's face. "You're 8 years old." "Yes, sir. And you carried my daughter across the city. She couldn't walk anymore. She was tired. That's 4 miles, kid, maybe more." Marcus didn't know what to say. His legs chose that moment to give out completely. He crumpled to the ground, his knees hitting the dirt hard. "Marcus." Lily struggled in her father's arms, reaching toward the sound of his fall. Duke held her tight, but his eyes never left Marcus. "He's hurt, Daddy. He's sick. Those men hit him and he fought them anyway. Please help him. Please." Duke handed Lily to another biker, a woman who appeared from somewhere, her face soft with concern. Then he walked toward Marcus. Each step felt like thunder. Marcus tried to get up, tried to at least face whatever was coming on his feet, but his body refused to cooperate. Duke knelt in front of him. Up close, the man was even more terrifying. Scars on his knuckles. A jagged line across his jaw that spoke of violence survived. Eyes that had seen things Marcus couldn't imagine, but his voice when he spoke was quiet, almost gentle. "You could have left her." "No, sir. You could have walked away. No one would have known. I would have known. You walked into a biker compound, into my territory. You had to know how that might end." Marcus met his eyes. Something in him refused to look away, even though every survival instinct told him to drop his gaze and grovel. She was scared. She wanted her daddy. I wasn't going to let her down. Duke was silent for a long moment. The other bikers shifted, leather creaking boots scraping against dirt. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Then Duke reached out and put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You hungry, kid?" Marcus blinked. That wasn't what he'd expected. "What?" "Food. When's the last time you ate?" I don't remember." "Yeah." Duke's jaw tightened. "I figured." He stood and turned to his men. His voice shifted, becoming the voice of a president, a leader, a man who expected obedience. "Rico, get the truck. Bones, radio ahead, tell Maria to get food ready and the spare room set up. Everyone else back to compound. Search is over." A biker stepped forward, older gray in his beard, skepticism in his eyes. "Duke, we don't know who this kid is. He's the kid who saved my daughter's life." Duke's voice went cold. "Anyone got a problem with that?" Silence. "That's what I thought." Duke turned back to Marcus and extended his hand. "Can you stand?" Marcus tried. His legs wobbled, threatened to give out again. Duke caught him before he fell, one massive arm wrapping around his shoulders, holding him up like he weighed nothing. "I got you, kid. You're done walking for tonight." For the first time in 3 years, someone was holding Marcus up instead of pushing him down. He didn't know what to do with that. A truck pulled up. Duke lifted Marcus into the back seat like he was handling something precious and breakable. Lily was already there, the woman from before sitting beside her. "Marcus." Lily's hand reached out, searching. Marcus took it. "I'm here. Don't let go." "I won't." Duke climbed into the front seat. The truck started moving. Around them, motorcycles roared to life, forming an escort that made the ground shake. Marcus watched the city lights blur past the window. His hand stayed wrapped around Lily's. His eyes stayed open, even though exhaustion pulled at them with iron fingers. He didn't know what was waiting at the compound. Didn't know what came next. Didn't know if this was rescue or just a different kind of danger. But for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus wasn't alone. The compound gate opened like the mouth of some great beast. Marcus saw floodlights, motorcycles everywhere, men and women pouring out of buildings to see the truck arrive. Word had spread. The president's daughter was home and she'd brought something unexpected with her. Duke killed the engine and was out of the truck before it fully stopped. He lifted Lily out, holding her against his chest, carrying her toward the main building while the crowd parted around him. Marcus didn't move. He sat in the back seat watching through the window, suddenly very aware of how out of place he was. These people belonged here. He belonged in alleys and dumpsters, and the forgotten corners of a city that had never wanted him. The truck door opened. The woman who'd been sitting with Lily looked at him with kind eyes. "You coming?" I shouldn't." "Duke said to bring you inside. That means you're coming inside." "But I'm not." "Kid?" Her voice softened. "You just carried the princess of the Iron Wolves across Phoenix. You're not going back to whatever hole you crawled out of tonight. Not on my watch." Marcus didn't have the strength to argue. He let her help him out of the truck, let her guide him through the crowd of leather and chrome and curious stares. He heard the whispers but couldn't make out the words. Probably wondering what Duke was thinking bringing a street rat into the clubhouse. The inside of the building was warm. Real warmth, not the stolen kind from laundromat vents or coffee shop doorways. Marcus's whole body shuddered at the sensation. "Bathrooms here." The woman opened a door. "Take a shower. I'll find you some clothes." "I don't need..." "Boy, you smell like a dumpster and you look like death. You're taking a shower." She closed the door behind him, leaving Marcus alone in a small bathroom with running water and soap and towels that looked clean and soft. He stood there for a full minute just staring. Then he turned on the water and stepped under the spray. The shower lasted a long time. Marcus watched the water run gray, then brown, then finally clear. He used the soap 3 times, scrubbed his hair until his scalp tingled. Let the heat soak into muscles that had forgotten what comfort felt like. When he finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than any blanket he'd ever owned, he found clothes waiting on a chair outside the door. Jeans, a t-shirt, socks without holes, a hoodie that was too big but warm. He dressed slowly. His hands were shaking. Not from cold anymore, from something else, something he couldn't name. The woman was waiting in the hallway. "Better," she said. "Now come on. Duke wants to talk to you." She led him through the building past bikers who watched him with unreadable expressions, past rooms filled with laughter and conversation that stopped when he appeared, past photographs on walls and patches on display and decades of history he couldn't begin to understand. They entered a large room. A long table dominated the space. Duke sat at the head, Lily in his lap, her face clean now, her eyes drooping with exhaustion. Food covered the table, more food than Marcus had seen in months. A burger, fries, a glass of milk, fruit, bread. His stomach cramped so hard he almost doubled over. "Sit." Duke pointed to a chair. "Eat." Marcus sat. He stared at the food, not touching it. "What are you waiting for?" Duke asked. Is it really for me?" Something crossed Duke's face. Pain, maybe. Or anger, but not at Marcus. "It's really for you. Eat." Marcus picked up the burger with trembling hands, took a bite. The taste exploded across his tongue, overwhelming and perfect, and so far removed from dumpster scraps that his eyes filled with tears. He ate slowly, carefully. Years of scarcity had taught him to make food last, to not trust that there would be more. Duke watched him without speaking. Lily had fallen asleep against her father's chest, her breathing slow and even, the stuffed bunny clutched in her arms. When Marcus had eaten enough to push back from the table, Duke finally spoke. "Tell me your story, kid. All of it." "Sir, start from the beginning. I want to know who you are, where you came from, how you ended up on my streets carrying my daughter." Marcus looked at his hands. Clean now, fingernails still ragged but no longer caked with dirt. He'd never told anyone his story. Never had anyone who wanted to hear it. "My mom left when I was 4, he began. "Just walked out one night. Didn't say goodbye. I don't even remember what she looked like anymore. Duke listened. His face revealed nothing. My dad tried. For a while. But he drank. A lot. And one day, he didn't wake up. Marcus's voice stayed flat. Matter of fact. This was history, not emotion. I was 5. The neighbors called someone. Social services, I think. They put me somewhere, a house with other kids, but I ran away. I don't remember why. I just remember running. You've been on the streets since you were 5. Yes, sir. 3 years. Yes, sir. How did you survive? I learned which dumpsters had food, which alleys were safe, which corners the cops didn't check. How to be invisible. Invisible? Marcus looked up. People don't see kids like me. We're just part of the background, like trash or weeds or graffiti. There but not worth looking at. Duke's jaw tightened. Someone should have seen you. No one did, not until today. What happened today? Marcus told him. Finding Lily, the truck, the refusal of help from everyone they asked, the men who attacked them, the miles of walking, the moment when he heard the radio announcement and knew who she was. You knew she was my daughter, Duke said slowly. You knew coming here might get you killed. And you came anyway. She was scared. She wanted you. Nothing else mattered. The room was quiet. Even the sounds from elsewhere in the compound seemed to have faded, like the building itself was holding its breath. Marcus. Duke's voice had changed. Softer now, rougher with something Marcus couldn't identify. Yes, sir. You got any family left, anyone looking for you? No, sir, never did. Where were you planning to sleep tonight before all this? There's a bus shelter on Roosevelt, has a roof, blocks the wind. Duke closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet. You're not going back there. Sir, tonight you're sleeping here. Real bed. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. I don't understand. What's to understand? You saved my daughter. You think I'm letting you walk back out into that hell? Marcus's throat tightened. People don't. That's not how it works. For kids like me. It's how it works for you. Now. Duke stood still, cradling the sleeping Lily. Maria will show you to the room. Get some sleep. Mr. Reyes. Duke. Duke, I can't. I don't deserve. Let me tell you something about deserve. Duke's voice hardened, but not with anger, with something fiercer. You walked across Phoenix with my daughter on your back. You got beat up protecting her. You gave her your food when you hadn't eaten in days. You walked into a compound full of men who could have done anything to you because a little girl asked you to take her home. That's not deserve. That's honor. Marcus didn't have words. His chest felt like it might explode. Sleep, Duke said. We'll talk more tomorrow. He left, carrying Lily into the depths of the compound. Marcus stood alone in the room, surrounded by food and warmth, and the impossible weight of kindness he didn't know how to carry. Maria, the woman from earlier, appeared in the doorway. Ready? Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. She led him to a small room, a real bed with real sheets, a window with actual curtains, a door that closed and locked. Bathroom's next door if you need it. Someone will wake you for breakfast. Ma'am? Yeah. Why are you being nice to me? Maria looked at him for a long moment. Because you were nice to someone who needed it. And around here that means something. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. Marcus stood in the middle of the room, unable to move. The bed looked impossible. Clean and soft and meant for someone who belonged somewhere. He didn't belong anywhere. But his body had stopped asking his permission. He collapsed onto the mattress, felt the sheets wrap around him like arms he'd forgotten existed, and was asleep before he could talk himself out of it. He dreamed of his mother. She was walking away like always. He was chasing her like always. But this time, when he screamed for her to stop, she didn't turn around. She just kept walking, disappearing into a light that burned his eyes. And then Lily was there. It's okay, Dream Lily said, reaching for his hand even though she couldn't see him. "You don't need her anymore. You have us." Marcus woke up crying. Sunlight streamed through the window. Real sunlight, not the harsh glare of exposed streets or the thin light filtered through bus shelter cracks. Morning sunlight in a room that still existed, in a bed that was still soft, in a building that hadn't thrown him out overnight. He lay still, listening. Voices, laughter, the clink of dishes, the smell of something cooking, bacon maybe. Eggs, coffee. Someone knocked on the door. "Marcus, you up?" Maria's voice. "Yes, ma'am." "Breakfast in 5. Duke wants you at the table." "Yes, ma'am." He dressed quickly in the same clothes from last night, his only clothes now, ran his fingers through his hair trying to make it lie flat, looked at himself in the mirror on the back of the door. He almost didn't recognize the kid staring back at him. Same face, same eyes. But something was different. The hollowness in his cheeks seemed less sharp. The shadows under his eyes seemed less dark. Or maybe it was just hope. That treacherous thing that had been beaten out of him years ago, now flickering back to life like a pilot light refusing to die. He opened the door and walked toward the noise. The common room was full. Bikers sat at tables eating and talking and filling the space with a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. They looked up when Marcus entered. Some nodded, some smiled. Most just watched with curious eyes. Duke sat at the head of the largest table. Lily was beside him eating scrambled eggs with her fingers because she couldn't see to use a fork properly. She heard Marcus's footsteps and her face lit up. "Marcus!" She scrambled off her chair and ran toward the sound of his voice, arms outstretched. Marcus caught her before she crashed into him, lifting her into a hug that surprised them both. "You're still here," she said into his shoulder. "I was scared you'd be gone." "I'm still here. Promise you'll stay." Marcus looked at Duke over Lily's head. The biker president was watching them with an expression Marcus couldn't read. "We'll see," Marcus said softly. "I'll try." Lily pulled back her blind eyes, somehow finding his face. "My daddy's going to make you stay. He told me. He said you're family now." Marcus's heart stopped. "He said what?" "Sit down, kid." Duke's voice cut through the noise. "We need to talk." Marcus set Lily down and walked to the table. He sat in the chair Duke indicated next to the president, but not quite at the table. Not quite belonging. "Eat first," Duke said. "Then we talk." A plate appeared in front of Marcus. Bacon, eggs, toast, orange juice. More food than he usually saw in a week. He ate. The room hummed around him with morning activity, bikers coming and going, conversations flowing the normal rhythm of a community that functioned like a family. When Marcus's plate was clean, Duke pushed his coffee aside and turned to face him fully. "I made some calls last night," Duke said. "About you." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Sir, you're not in the system. No active missing persons report. No foster placement looking for you. As far as the state of Arizona is concerned, you don't exist." "I know. That's a problem, and an opportunity." "I don't understand." Duke leaned back. "You saved my daughter, Marcus. You did something most adults wouldn't have done. You walked into hell for a stranger and came out the other side. That means something to me. It means something to everyone in this club. I just did what anyone would do." "No." Duke's voice sharpened. "You did what no one else did. Don't minimize that." Marcus looked down at his empty plate. "I want to help you," Duke continued. "But I need to know, what do you want? If you could have anything right now, what would it be?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. No one had ever asked him what he wanted. Want was a luxury for children who had options, not street kids who survived on scraps and scrounged for pennies. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I've never thought about it." "Think about it now." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Lily had returned to her chair beside her father, but her hand reached across the table searching until she found Marcus's arm. She held on, waiting. "I want..." Marcus's voice cracked. He swallowed hard. I want to not be invisible anymore. I want someone to see me. I want to matter to someone. Duke's hand came down on his shoulder. Heavy, warm, solid. You matter, kid. You matter to Lily. You matter to me. And starting today, you're going to matter to everyone in this club. What does that mean? It means we're having a meeting this afternoon, full assembly. And I'm proposing something that hasn't happened in 20 years. Marcus's heart hammered. What? Duke smiled. It transformed his face, made him look almost human beneath all that leather and intimidation. You'll see. The day passed in a blur. Lily refused to let Marcus out of her reach. She followed him everywhere, holding his hand, asking him questions, showing him her world through the lens of someone who'd never needed sight to see what mattered. She showed him the garage where the mechanics worked on bikes. She introduced him to dogs that lived on the compound, 3 German shepherds who terrified Marcus until Lily showed him how to let them smell his hand. She took him to the kitchen and made Maria give him cookies, then insisted they eat them together on the back steps. You're my best friend, she told him, her mouth full of chocolate chips. You just met me yesterday. Doesn't matter, you saved my life. That makes you my best friend, forever. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. Best friend. Like it was simple, like it was obvious. I've never had a best friend, he admitted. Now you do. She said it with such certainty, such absolute confidence, like the universe had already decided and they were just catching up. Marcus wondered what it felt like to be that sure about anything. At 3 o'clock, Maria came to find them. It's time, she said. Duke wants you both in the meeting room. Marcus's stomach dropped. Both of us. Both of you. They walked together, Lily's hand tight in his through hallways that suddenly seemed longer and more intimidating than before. The meeting room door loomed ahead, closed and heavy. Don't be scared, Lily whispered. My daddy won't let anything bad happen to you. How do you know? Because I asked him not to, and he always gives me what I ask for. Marcus almost laughed. Almost. The door opened. The room was packed. Every seat at the long table was filled. More bikers stood against the walls, arms crossed, faces serious. 40 men. Maybe more. All wearing their cuts, all watching Marcus and Lily enter. Duke stood at the head of the table. His presence filled the room, commanding attention without demanding it. Sit down, he said to Marcus. Right there, where everyone can see you. Marcus sat in the chair Duke indicated. It was isolated, alone in front of the assembled club. He felt like a defendant waiting for judgment. Lily didn't sit. She walked straight to her father and climbed into his lap, facing the room, her blind eyes somehow making contact with everyone at once. Brothers, Duke began, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of loyalty and blood. You all know why we're here. You all know what happened yesterday. My daughter was lost. My daughter was in danger. And this boy, this 8-year-old homeless kid with nothing to his name, brought her home. Murmurs rippled through the room. Marcus kept his eyes forward, hands clasped in his lap to hide their trembling. He gave her his only food when he hadn't eaten in days. He carried her across the city when she couldn't walk. He fought 3 grown men who tried to take her. He walked into our compound knowing we might kill him because a little girl asked him to take her home. Duke paused, letting the words sink in. I've been president of this club for 15 years. In that time, I've seen loyalty and I've seen betrayal. I've seen courage and I've seen cowardice. I've seen men claim to live by our code while spitting on everything it stands for. His hand came to rest on Lily's head. This boy, this child, he lives our code better than most of us. He protected the vulnerable. He honored a promise. He showed courage when it would have been easier to walk away. Duke looked directly at Marcus. I'm proposing something we haven't done since 1987. I'm proposing we take this boy in. Full protection, education, a home, not as a guest, not as charity, as family. The room erupted. Voices overlapped, arguing, questioning, supporting. Marcus heard fragments. He's just a kid. and Duke's lost his mind, and did you see what he did, and this isn't how we operate. An older biker stood up, the same one Marcus had seen challenge Duke the night before. Duke, with all due respect, we don't take in strays. We're a motorcycle club, not an orphanage. And what do you think we are, Bones? Duke's voice cut through the noise. We're family. We protect our own. We stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. This boy is more qualified for that than half the men in this room. He's 8 years old. He's 8 years old, and he did what none of us could do. He found Lily when we couldn't. He saved her when we weren't there. Bones sat down, but the argument continued. Marcus watched it unfold, feeling like he was witnessing his own fate being decided by strangers. Then Lily spoke. Stop fighting. Her small voice shouldn't have cut through the noise of 40 grown men arguing, but somehow it did. Marcus is nice, she said. He was scared, but he didn't leave me. He was hungry, but he gave me his food. He was hurt, but he kept walking. That's what Daddy says a real Iron Wolf is. Someone who does the right thing even when it's hard. She turned her face toward her father, even though she couldn't see him. If you don't let him stay, I'm going to be really mad. Forever. Duke's mouth twitched. Just slightly. You heard the princess, he said to the room. Anyone want to argue with her? Silence. We vote, Duke continued. Full assembly. Show of hands. All in favor of taking Marcus in protection education, home family, raise your hand. Marcus watched. One hand went up, then another, then 10, then 20, then every hand in the room. 40 men, 40 hands, unanimous. Duke nodded slowly. Motion carries. He looked at Marcus. Welcome to the family, kid. Marcus couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't process what had just happened. Lily slid off her father's lap and ran to him, her arms wrapping around his neck before he could react. See, she whispered. I told you. You're not invisible anymore. You're ours. And Marcus, who hadn't cried since the night his father died, finally broke. The tears came without permission, great gasping sobs that shook his whole body. 3 years of hunger and fear and loneliness, and the desperate hope that someone somewhere might see him, all of it flooding out at once. Duke knelt beside him. This terrifying man, this leader of outlaws, this legend who made grown criminals tremble. He pulled Marcus into his arms and held him while he cried. Let it out, kid, Duke said quietly. Let it all out. You're safe now. You're home. Marcus cried until there was nothing left. Until the fear finally released its grip, until the weight he'd been carrying for 3 years lifted just enough for him to breathe. And 40 bikers watched in silence, some of them wiping their own eyes as a homeless boy finally found what he'd been searching for since the night his mother walked away. A family. A place to belong. A reason to matter. The first week was the hardest. Marcus kept waiting for the trap to spring, for someone to laugh and say it was all a joke, for Duke to change his mind and throw him back onto the streets where kids like him belonged. Every morning he woke up expecting the bed to be gone, expecting to open his eyes and find himself back under the bus shelter, the whole thing nothing but a fever dream born from hunger and exhaustion. But every morning the bed was still there, the room was still there, and somewhere in the compound Lily was waiting for him. You don't have to sleep with your shoes on, Maria told him on the third night, finding him curled up on top of the blankets, fully dressed, sneakers tied tight. No one's gonna make you leave in the middle of the night. I know. Do you? Marcus didn't answer. Maria sat on the edge of the bed, her weight barely denting the mattress. It takes time, she said softly. Trust doesn't happen overnight, especially not for kids who've been through what you've been through. I'm fine. You're surviving. That's not the same thing. She reached out and touched his shoulder, and he flinched before he could stop himself. She didn't pull away. You're allowed to be scared, Marcus. You're allowed to take time. Just don't run, okay? Give us a chance to prove we mean it. Marcus looked at her. This woman who had no reason to care about him, no obligation to spend her nights checking on a street kid who still smelled like fear no matter how many showers he took. Why? He asked. Why do you care? Because someone should have cared a long time ago. And because my son would have been your age. She stood up before Marcus could ask what she meant. Her eyes were wet, but she smiled anyway. Sleep, Marcus. Tomorrow's a big day. What's tomorrow? School registration. Duke's not wasting any time. The door closed behind her. Marcus lay in the darkness, his shoes still on, his heart racing from a touch he hadn't expected. Someone should have cared a long time ago. Yeah, someone should have. He didn't sleep until almost dawn. Duke's truck pulled up to Franklin Elementary at exactly 8:47 a.m. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, his stomach churning, his hands gripping his knees so hard his knuckles went white. He was wearing new clothes, real new clothes, not stolen or donated or pulled from a dumpster, jeans that fit, a shirt without holes, sneakers that still squeaked when he walked. He felt like a fraud. Nervous? Duke asked. No. Liar. Marcus almost smiled. Okay, maybe a little. You remember what we talked about? Don't tell anyone where I live. Don't mention the club. If anyone asks, I'm staying with relatives. Good. And if anyone gives you trouble, walk away. Tell you later. Duke nodded. You're smart, kid. Use it. School's not going to be easy. You've got a lot of catching up to do, but I've seen you figure out how to survive on nothing. This should be cake. Surviving on the streets is different from sitting in a classroom. Yeah, it's harder on the streets, so you've already done the hard part. Duke opened his door and stepped out. Marcus followed his legs, feeling like they might collapse with each step. The school loomed ahead, brick walls, chain link fences, kids his age running and laughing and living lives he couldn't imagine. Normal kids. Kids who'd never slept in alleys or eaten from trash cans or learned to make themselves invisible just to survive another day. He didn't belong here. Marcus. He turned. Duke was looking at him with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. You're going to be fine. Better than fine. And when you come home tonight, Lily's going to want to hear everything. So pay attention. Learn something. Give her a good story. Home. Duke said it like it was obvious, like Marcus had a home now, a place to come back to people waiting for him. Okay, Marcus said. I'll try. Don't try. Do. Duke walked him to the office, handled the paperwork with a casual authority that made the secretary straighten in her chair. Questions were asked and answered. Forms were signed. And then Duke was gone, and Marcus was standing alone in a hallway full of strangers. Marcus. I'm Mrs. Rodriguez. I'll be showing you to your classroom. The teacher was kind. Her voice was warm, her smile was real, and she didn't look at Marcus like he was something scraped off the bottom of a shoe. He followed her through corridors that echoed with noise, lockers slamming, kids shouting, the chaos of normal life that felt completely alien. You'll be in Mr. Patterson's class, 3rd grade. He's strict but fair. If you need anything, my office is right down the hall. Thank you, ma'am. Just, Mrs. Rodriguez is fine. She paused outside a door. Ready? No. Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Rodriguez. She opened the door. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward Marcus. 20 faces staring at the new kid, sizing him up, categorizing him, deciding where he fit in their social hierarchy. Class, this is Marcus. He'll be joining us today. Please make him feel welcome. The teacher, Mr. Patterson, pointed to an empty desk near the back. Marcus walked toward it, feeling every step like a mile. He sat down. The chair was hard. The desk was small. A kid next to him leaned over. Where'd you come from? Somewhere else. No kidding. Where? Marcus looked at him. The kid had freckles and a gap between his front teeth. Curious eyes, not mean ones. Around. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. The kid grinned. I'm Tommy. You're weird. I like weird. Before Marcus could respond, Mr. Patterson called the class to attention. The lesson started something about multiplication tables that Marcus had never learned, fractions. He'd never seen concepts that might as well have been a foreign language. He was behind, way behind. 3 years on the streets meant 3 years of no school, no books, no learning anything except how to stay alive. But he listened. He watched. He absorbed. Because Duke was right. He'd survived things that would have broken most adults. This was just another kind of survival. Different rules, same game. By lunch, Marcus had figured out the basics. Keep your head down, don't draw attention, watch for threats, identify allies. Tommy was an ally. The kid wouldn't shut up, which was actually useful. He filled the silence, asked questions Marcus didn't have to answer, and provided cover from the other kids who were still trying to figure out the new kid. "So you live with bikers?" Tommy asked, his mouth full of sandwich. Marcus froze. "What?" "The guy who dropped you off. Big dude. Leather vest. Looked like he could crush my dad with one hand." Tommy shrugged. "My mom said the Iron Wolves are dangerous. Are they dangerous?" Marcus's heart was pounding. "He's my uncle." "Cool. My uncle's an accountant. Boring as dirt." Tommy took another bite. "Is it true they have like 100 motorcycles?" "I don't know. I just got there." "Got where I thought you said—" "I said I don't want to talk about it." Tommy's eyes widened. Not hurt. Intrigued. Okay. No problem. You want to see my baseball cards?" The subject changed. Marcus breathed again. But he'd learned something important people noticed more than he'd thought. Being invisible on the streets was one thing. Being invisible in school was going to be much harder. The afternoon dragged. Math turned into reading, turned into science. Marcus understood almost none of it, but he copied what other kids wrote, paid attention to what the teacher emphasized, tried to build a framework he could fill in later. By 3:15, he was exhausted. His brain felt wrung out like a wet rag. When the final bell rang, he grabbed his backpack and headed for the door. "Marcus." He turned. Mr. Patterson was walking toward him, papers in hand. "You did well today, considering." "Considering what, sir?" "Considering you've never been in a classroom before." The teacher's eyes were sharp. "I've been teaching for 20 years. I know a kid who's never held a textbook when I see one." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Sir, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying you're going to need extra help. I can arrange tutoring, after school twice a week, if you're willing." Extra help, tutoring, like he was broken, deficient, something that needed fixing. But he thought about Lily, about Duke, about the vote that had changed his life, about the family that had chosen him. "I'm willing," he said. "Sir." "Good. We'll start Monday." Mr. Patterson smiled just slightly. "You've got potential, Marcus. Don't waste it." Duke's truck was waiting outside. Marcus climbed in his body, heavy with exhaustion, his mind still racing. "How was it?" "Hard." "Good hard or bad hard?" "I don't know yet." Duke nodded, accepting the answer. They drove in silence for a while, the city scrolling past the windows, familiar streets giving way to the industrial district, and finally, the compound gates. "Duke." "Yeah." "The teacher wants to give me extra help. Tutoring. He says I'm behind." "Are you?" "Yeah, really behind, like years behind." Duke was quiet for a moment. Then, "That bothers you?" "I don't know. Maybe. I feel stupid." "You're not stupid. You're uneducated. There's a difference." Duke pulled through the gates and parked. "Stupid is permanent. Uneducated is fixable. You want to fix it." "Yeah." "Then fix it. Take the tutoring. Ask questions when you don't understand. Do the work. You've got a brain, Marcus. A good one. Use it." "How do you know I've got a good brain? I can barely do multiplication." Duke turned to face him. "Because you survived. Because you figured out how to stay alive when everything was trying to kill you. Because you made decisions that most adults would have gotten wrong and you got them right. That's not luck. That's intelligence." Marcus didn't know what to say. "Now get inside. Lily's been driving everyone crazy waiting for you." Lily was at the door before Marcus could reach it. "Marcus." She launched herself at him, her arms wrapping around his waist, her face buried in his chest. "How was it? Did you learn things? Did you make friends? Did anyone try to fight you?" "Daddy said sometimes kids fight on the first day." "Nobody tried to fight me." "Good, because I would have been really mad." She pulled back her blind eyes, searching for his face. "Tell me everything. I want to know everything." Marcus let her drag him inside, her hand tight in his. her questions tumbling out faster than he could answer. He told her about Tommy, about Mr. Patterson, about the multiplication tables and the lunchroom and the way the bells sounded different than he'd imagined. She listened to every word like it was the most important story she'd ever heard. "Tomorrow I'll tell you more," Marcus finally said, his voice giving out from exhaustion. "Promise. Promise." That night, Marcus took off his shoes before bed. The second week was better. Marcus started to learn the rhythms of school, when to speak, when to stay quiet, which teachers appreciated questions and which wanted compliance. Tommy became a permanent fixture at his side, a self-appointed guide to the social landscape that Marcus was still trying to navigate. "That's Jennifer," Tommy would whisper. "She's mean. Avoid her. That's Derek. He's okay, but his breath is terrible. That's Mrs. Kim. She gives extra credit if you clean the erasers." Useful intelligence. Marcus filed it all away. The tutoring sessions with Mr. Patterson were brutal but effective. The teacher didn't coddle him, didn't treat him like he was fragile. He just taught filling in gaps, building foundations, pushing Marcus harder than anyone had ever pushed him. "You're catching up faster than any student I've ever had," Mr. Patterson told him after the fourth session. "A year behind, maybe less. You could be at grade level by spring. Really? Really? If you keep working like this." Marcus kept working. At the compound, he fell into a different kind of rhythm. Mornings with Lily breakfast stories, the small moments of connection that neither of them knew they needed. Afternoons with the mechanics, Razor and Bear, and old Jake, who'd been working on bikes since before Duke was born. "You've got good hands," Razor told him, watching Marcus clean carburetor parts with focused precision. "Steady, patient. That's rare in a kid. I used to fix things on the street, stuff I found, trying to make them work again." "Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Something to do. Made me feel like I wasn't completely useless." Razor exchanged a look with Bear. Something passed between them that Marcus didn't understand. "You're not useless, kid. Not even close." The compound became home in ways Marcus hadn't expected. Not just the room and the bed and the food, though those things still felt miraculous, but the people. The way Maria checked on him every night. The way Duke asked about school at dinner. The way Lily's face lit up every time he walked through the door. He mattered here. For the first time in his life, he mattered. But not everyone at the compound was convinced. Marcus had noticed the looks, the whispers that stopped when he walked into a room. Some of the bikers accepted him without question. Duke's word was law, and if Duke said the kid was family, the kid was family. But others watched him with skepticism, doubt something that looked almost like resentment. Bones was the worst. The old biker never said anything directly, never confronted Marcus or challenged Duke's decision, but his eyes followed Marcus everywhere. Cold, measuring, waiting. "Don't worry about him," Razor said one afternoon, catching Marcus watching Bones across the garage. "He's old school. Takes him a while to warm up to new blood." "He doesn't like me." "He doesn't know you. That's different." Razor wiped his hands on a rag. "Bones lost his son about 10 years back. Street racing. Kid was 17. Ever since then, he's been careful about who he lets in. He had a son. Yeah, good kid. Wild but good." Razor's voice softened. "Some people, when they lose something precious, they close up, make it harder for anyone else to get in. It's not about you, Marcus, it's about him." Marcus thought about that, about loss and walls and the way pain could make people hard. He thought about his own walls, the ones he was still trying to take down. 2 days later, Marcus made a decision. He found Bones in the garage alone, working on an older bike that had seen better decades. The old man didn't look up when Marcus approached. "I'm not here to bother you," Marcus said. "I just wanted to say, I know you don't trust me, and that's okay. I wouldn't trust me either." Bones's hands stilled on the engine. He didn't speak. "I'm not going to try to prove anything to you. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Going to school, helping out here, taking care of Lily. And maybe someday you'll see that I belong here. Or maybe you won't. Either way, I'm not going anywhere." Marcus turned to leave. "Kid, He stopped. Bones was looking at him now. Really looking. His eyes weren't cold anymore, they were something else. Something complicated. How old are you? 8. 8 years old and you talk like that. The streets teach you things. Yeah. Bones's voice was rough. I guess they do. He turned back to the bike. The conversation was over. But something had shifted. Marcus could feel it. That night, Bones nodded at him during dinner. Just once. Just barely. It was enough. 3 weeks in, everything changed. Marcus was at school halfway through a math test. He was actually understanding when the intercom crackled. Marcus to the principal's office. Marcus to the principal's office immediately. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward him. Tommy's face went pale. What did you do? Nothing. Then why? I don't know. Marcus gathered his things and walked to the office, his heart pounding with every step. This was it. They'd found out about his past. They were going to take him away. They were going to send him back to the streets, or worse, to foster care. Or worse still, somewhere he'd never escape from. The principal's door was open. Inside, 2 people sat across from the desk, a man in a suit and a woman with a clipboard. Official. Government. The kind of people who destroyed lives with paperwork and good intentions. Marcus, please sit down. He sat. I'm Mr. Harrison and this is Ms. Williams. We're from Child Protective Services. Marcus's blood turned to ice. We've been doing some research, Ms. Williams said, her voice carefully neutral. And we've discovered something concerning about your living situation. I don't know what you mean. You're living with the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club. Is that correct? Silence. Marcus, we need to know the truth. We're only trying to help you. Help. That word again. The word adults used right before they destroyed everything. I'm fine where I am. You're 8 years old, living with a known outlaw motorcycle club. That's not fine. That's a situation that requires intervention. I was on the streets for 3 years. Nobody intervened then. Ms. Williams flinched. We didn't know. Nobody knew. Nobody cared. I was invisible. And now that someone finally sees me, finally wants me, you want to take that away. We want to make sure you're safe. I am safe. For the first time in my life, I'm safe. I have food. I have a bed. I have people who care about me. And you want to take me away because they ride motorcycles. The door burst open behind them. Duke stood in the doorway and Marcus had never seen him look like this. Not angry, controlled. Every inch of him radiating a quiet menace that made Mr. Harrison shrink back in his chair. This meeting is over. Mr. Reyes, we have legitimate concerns. You have paperwork and assumptions. I have lawyers. Duke walked into the room, placing himself between Marcus and the CPS workers. My attorney will be in touch within the hour. Until then, you will not speak to this child again without legal representation present. We're just trying to... I know exactly what you're trying to do, and it's not going to happen. Duke's voice dropped cold and final. Marcus is under my legal guardianship. The paperwork was filed 3 days ago. So unless you have a court order, this conversation is finished. Ms. Williams' mouth opened, closed. She looked at her partner. We'll be in touch, Mr. Harrison said weakly. I'm sure you will. Duke took Marcus's arm and led him out of the office through the hallways out the front doors to where his truck was illegally parked at the curb. Neither of them spoke until they were inside, doors closed, engine running. Legal guardianship. Marcus's voice came out shaky. What does that mean? It means you're mine. Officially. Legally. No one can take you away without going through me first. But how I thought. I've been working on it since day one. Lawyers, paperwork, the whole system. It took time, but it's done. Duke looked at him. You're not going anywhere, Marcus. Not back to the streets. Not to foster care. Not anywhere you don't want to go. Marcus stared at him. This man who had been a stranger 2 weeks ago. This terrifying biker president who cried when his daughter came home. This person who had looked at a homeless 8-year-old and seen something worth fighting for. Why? The word came out broken. "Why would you do all that for me?" Duke was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Because my daughter is alive because of you. Because I see you with her, and I see someone who would die before letting anything hurt her. Because you walked into hell for a stranger, and that's the kind of person I want in my family." He paused. "And because every kid deserves someone willing to fight for them. You never had that. Now you do." Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight of it pressed down on him, not crushing, but holding, like an embrace he hadn't known he needed. "Let's go home," Duke said. "Lily's worried." Home. Yeah. Marcus was finally starting to believe it. The compound was chaos when they arrived. News had spread. Marcus didn't know how, maybe radio, maybe just the biker network that seemed to know everything before it happened. People were gathered in the common room, voices raised, tension crackling in the air. CPS came for the kid, at his school, in front of everyone. Those bastards. Who called them? Does it matter? What are we going to do about it? Duke walked in and the room went silent. Marcus stood behind him, trying to make himself small, invisible, the old habits rising like bile in his throat. "Listen up." Duke's voice cut through the tension. "CPS made their move. I made mine. The guardianship is legal. They can't touch him without a fight. And if they bring a fight," Duke's smile was cold, "then we give them one." Bones stepped forward. The old man who had watched Marcus with suspicion for weeks, who had barely spoken to him, who had kept his distance like Marcus, was carrying something contagious. "I know some people," Bones said. "State level. Owe me favors. I can make some calls." Duke nodded. "Do it." "Anyone else got contacts?" Razor asked. "Lawyers, politicians. Anyone who can put pressure on these pencil pushers." Hands went up. Names were offered. Plans formed. The entire club mobilizing around one 8-year-old kid who had stumbled into their lives less than a month ago. Marcus watched it happen, unable to move, unable to process. These people, these rough, leather-wearing, motorcycle-riding outlaws, were going to war for him. Not because he'd asked, not because they owed him, because he was family. Lily found him in the corner, her hand reaching out until she touched his arm. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "Daddy won't let them take you." "I know. Do you really know? Or are you just saying that?" Marcus looked at her. This little girl who had changed everything, who had seen him when he was invisible, who had trusted him when she had no reason to trust anyone. "I'm starting to know," he said. She smiled. "Good. Because you're my best friend and I don't want a new one. They would probably be really boring." Marcus laughed. It came out wet, choked, more sob than laughter. But it was real. And for now, that was enough. The CPS battle lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of meetings and paperwork and lawyers speaking languages Marcus didn't understand. 6 weeks of home visits carefully orchestrated the compound on its best behavior. The most intimidating bikers mysteriously absent whenever the social workers arrived. 6 weeks of uncertainty, of waiting, of Marcus lying awake at night, shoes back on, ready to run if everything fell apart. But it didn't fall apart. Duke's lawyers were good, better than good. They presented evidence of Marcus's care school records showing rapid improvement, medical checkups showing a malnourished child finally gaining weight testimony from teachers and doctors, and even the reluctant Mrs. Rodriguez, who called Marcus one of the most remarkable children I've ever taught. They presented evidence of his life before the absence of any safety net, the complete failure of the system to catch a 5-year-old falling through every crack. They asked pointed questions about where CPS had been for 3 years, while a child slept in alleys and ate from garbage cans. The social workers didn't have good answers. In the end, the judge ruled in Duke's favor. Full guardianship, no further intervention required. Marcus was legally and officially home. The compound threw a party that night. Music and food and laughter that echoed off the walls. Bikers who had been strangers 6 weeks ago clapped Marcus on the shoulder, ruffled his hair, told him he was stuck with them now. Bones pulled him aside. "I was wrong about you," the old man said. "I thought you were a risk, thought you'd bring trouble and wouldn't be worth it." He paused. "I was wrong." "It's okay." "No, it's not." Bones's eyes were wet. "My son, he would have liked you, would have thought you were brave, stupid brave the way he was, but brave. Thank you, sir." "Don't call me sir, call me Bones." The old man stuck out his hand. "Welcome to the family, Marcus. For real this time." Marcus shook his hand. And finally, he started to believe it. Later that night, when the party had quieted and most of the compound had gone to sleep, Marcus sat on the back steps, looking up at stars. He could actually see now that he wasn't surrounded by city lights. Lily appeared beside him, navigating by sound and memory, lowering herself onto the step with practiced ease. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much to think about?" "Happy thoughts or worried thoughts?" "Both. Maybe more happy than worried." She found his hand and held it. They sat in comfortable silence, two children who had found each other in darkness and somehow made it to the light. "Marcus." "Yeah. I'm glad you found me. I'm glad you let me carry you." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Do you think we'll always be friends?" Marcus thought about the question, about everything that had happened, about everything that was still to come. "Yeah," he said. "I think we will. Promise. Promise." They stayed like that until Maria came looking for them, until Duke carried Lily to bed, until Marcus finally walked to his room, and for the first time since arriving fell asleep within minutes. No nightmares, no fear, just peace, and the knowledge that tomorrow he would wake up in the same place. Home. 6 months changed everything. Marcus stood in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the boy staring back at him. His cheeks had filled out. His arms had muscle where there used to be bone. His eyes, those hollow, haunted eyes that had seen too much, too young, still carried shadows, but they weren't empty anymore. He was 9 now. Birthday celebrated 3 weeks ago with a cake Maria made from scratch and 40 bikers singing off key while Lily conducted them with a wooden spoon. 9 years old, 4th grade, reading at 5th grade level, math finally making sense, a room that was his, a family that wanted him. Some mornings he still woke up terrified it was all a dream. "Marcus, you're going to be late," Maria's voice echoed through the compound. Marcus grabbed his backpack, new bought specifically for him, not scavenged or stolen, and ran for the door. Lily was waiting in the hallway, her white cane tapping impatiently against the floor. "You take forever," she complained. "I take 5 minutes. That's forever when you're waiting." She found his arm and held on. "Walk me to breakfast. Always." They walked together, a routine so familiar now it felt like it had always existed. Lily's therapy sessions had paid off. She moved through the compound with confidence, her mental map constantly updating her other senses, sharper than most people's sight. But she still liked having Marcus beside her, and Marcus still liked being there. The common room was buzzing with unusual energy. Bikers clustered in groups, voices low, faces serious. Something was wrong. Duke stood at the center, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression carved from stone. "What's happening?" Marcus asked Razor, who was closest to the door. "Trouble. The Scorpions are moving in on our territory." "Scorpions. Rival club, out of Tucson. They've been pushing boundaries for months, but last night they crossed a line." Razor's jaw tightened. "They hurt one of ours. Prospect named Danny. Beat him bad. Left him on our doorstep like a message." Marcus's stomach turned. "Is he okay?" "He'll live, but that's not the point. You don't touch an iron wolf and walk away. Duke's calling a meeting." The meeting happened that afternoon. Marcus wasn't supposed to be there. Club business was for patched members only. But he was in the garage when the doors closed, hidden behind a stack of tires, listening to everything. Duke's voice carried through the space. "They want war. They've been picking at us for months, testing our response. Now they've drawn blood." "So we draw more," someone growled. "Ride tonight. Show them what happens when you mess with us. And walk straight into whatever trap they've set. Duke's tone was sharp. They beat Danny and left him where we'd find him. That's not random violence, that's provocation. They want us angry and stupid. So what do? Nothing. We do this smart. We find out why they're pushing now, what they want, and we hit them where it actually hurts. Duke paused. Bones, what do you know about their operation? They've been expanding, drugs mostly, trying to move into Phoenix, but they need distribution. Our territory has the networks they want. So this is about money. It's always about money, or power, usually both. The discussion continued strategy and counter-strategy names Marcus didn't recognize and places he'd never heard of. He absorbed it all, filing away information the way he'd learned to file away survival knowledge on the streets. These were his people now. Their problems were his problems, even if he couldn't do anything about them. 3 days later, Marcus was walking home from school when he saw them. 2 men in leather vests, different patches than the Iron Wolves, leaning against motorcycles on the corner across from the school, watching the kids come out, watching him. Marcus's blood ran cold. He knew danger, recognized it in the way they held themselves, the way their eyes tracked his movement. These weren't random bikers. These were hunters, and he was prey. He forced himself to keep walking, normal pace. Don't run. Running triggers pursuit. The men didn't move. They just watched. Tommy appeared beside him, chattering about something, homework maybe, or video games. Marcus couldn't hear the words. His entire focus was on the men behind him, on the distance to the compound, on escape routes and hiding places, and all the survival instincts he'd thought he'd left behind. Marcus, you okay? You look weird. I'm fine, let's walk faster. Why? Just do it. They made it to the pickup zone where Duke's truck was waiting. Marcus practically dove into the passenger seat, his hands shaking, his breath coming too fast. Duke noticed immediately. What happened? Men, across from the school, watching me, different patches. Duke's face went rigid. He pulled out of the parking lot slowly, calmly, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Describe them. Marcus did. Every detail he could remember: height, build, the colors on their vests, the bikes they rode. Scorpions, Duke said quietly. They followed you to school. Why? I'm nobody. You're my son. The words hit Marcus like a physical force. Legally, publicly, everyone knows you're under my protection, and they know hurting you would hurt me more than anything they could do to me directly. Marcus's chest tightened. I'm putting you in danger. No, they're putting themselves in danger by going near you. Duke's voice was steel. This changes things. You're not going back to school until this is resolved. But not negotiable. What about Lily? If they know about me, they know about her. Duke's jaw worked. Marcus could see the war behind his eyes, the father fighting the president, the protector calculating risks. Lily doesn't leave the compound. Neither do you. Not until I handle this. How are you going to handle it? Duke didn't answer. The compound went into lockdown. Gates secured, extra guards on rotation, women and children confined to the main buildings. The usual relaxed atmosphere replaced by tension thick enough to taste. Lily didn't understand at first. She kept asking to go to therapy, to the park, to anywhere outside the walls that had suddenly become a cage. Why can't I leave? What's happening? Marcus didn't know how to explain. How do you tell a 7-year-old that bad men might hurt her to make a point? How do you describe a world where children became weapons in wars they didn't start? There are some people causing trouble, he said finally. Your dad wants to make sure everyone's safe. Are you scared? A little? Me too, she found his hand. But I'm less scared because you're here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. The days blurred together. Marcus tried to keep up with schoolwork. Mr. Patterson sent assignments home, understanding the situation without being told details. Lily practiced her mobility exercises inside, counting steps down hallways she'd long ago memorized. But the tension was suffocating. Marcus heard things. Fragments of conversation when the adults thought no one was listening. Plans being made. Alliances being formed. The slow, methodical preparation for something big. On the 5th night, Duke called Marcus into his office. "Close the door." Marcus obeyed. Duke looked exhausted. His face lined his eyes heavy. The weight of leadership had never been more visible. "Sit down. We need to talk. About the Scorpions. About you." Duke leaned forward, elbows on his desk. "I've done everything I can to keep you out of this, but you're not stupid. You know something's coming." "Yeah. What happens next? It might get ugly. I want you to understand why. You're going to fight them. I'm going to end them." Duke's voice was flat. "They came after my family, my kids. That's not something I negotiate. That's not something I forgive." Marcus thought about the men outside his school, the way they'd looked at him, like he was a target, a tool, a means to an end. "What do you need me to do?" Duke studied him. "You're 9 years old. You shouldn't have to do anything. I'm 9 years old and I survived 3 years on the streets. I know how to be useful." A long pause. Something passed across Duke's face, respect maybe, or sorrow for the childhood Marcus had never been allowed to have. "I need you to protect Lily." "I always protect Lily." "This is different. If something happens, if things go wrong and I don't come back, I need to know you'll get her out. Take her to Maria's sister in Flagstaff. The address is in the safe. Code is her birthday." Marcus's blood chilled. "You're talking like you might die." "I'm talking like a father who needs to plan for every possibility." Duke's voice cracked just slightly. "You're the only one I trust with this, the only one who's proven they'd give everything for her. Nothing's going to happen to you. Probably not. But if it does, nothing's going to happen to you." Marcus's voice was fierce. "Because you're going to come back, and I'm going to be here, and Lily's going to be here, and we're going to be a family. That's how this works." Duke stared at him for a long moment, then slowly he smiled. "You know, when I voted to take you in, some of the guys thought I was crazy. Taking in a homeless kid, making him family just because he helped Lily. They thought it was emotion overriding sense. What do you think?" "I think it was the smartest decision I ever made." Duke stood, walked around the desk, and put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You're my son, Marcus. Not just on paper. In here." He touched his own chest. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know that." Tomorrow. So it was tomorrow. "I know," Marcus said. "I know, Dad." The words slipped out before he could stop it. He'd never called Duke that before, never felt like he had the right. But Duke's face transformed. The exhaustion, the weight, the impossible burden, all of it softened for just a moment. "Get some sleep," Duke said roughly. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in his room, door open, listening to the sounds of the compound preparing for war. Engines being tuned, weapons being checked, low voices making final plans. Around midnight, footsteps stopped outside his door. "Marcus," Lily's voice, small and scared. "Come in." She felt her way to his bed and climbed up beside him, her stuffed bunny clutched tight against her chest. "I can't sleep either. Bad dreams. No dreams. Just afraid." "Me too." They sat together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of a compound that had become a fortress. "Marcus, if something bad happens, nothing bad is going to happen. But if it does, promise you won't leave me. I'll never leave you, no matter what. Cross your heart." Marcus took her hand and placed it on his chest over his heart. "Cross my heart." She curled up beside him, her breathing slowly evening out. Marcus stayed awake, one hand on her shoulder, eyes fixed on the door, protecting her, the way he had from the very first moment. Dawn came too fast. Marcus heard the engines before he saw them. 40 motorcycles, maybe more, roaring to life in the pre-dawn darkness. The compound shook with the sound. He carried Lily to Maria's room, handed her over to the woman whose eyes were red from crying she wouldn't acknowledge. "Stay here," Marcus said to Lily. "I'll be back soon." "Where are you going?" "To say goodbye." He ran to the gate where the bikes were lining up. Duke sat at the front, his helmet in his hands, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Marcus, you should be inside." "I know. I just—" Words failed him. "Come back." Duke looked at him. This 9-year-old boy who had walked through fire for a stranger, who had become a son in every way that mattered, who was standing here at dawn, brave enough to say what he felt, despite everything the streets had taught him about the danger of caring. "I'll come back," Duke said. "Count on it." He pulled Marcus into a hug. Fierce, brief, the kind of embrace that says everything words can't. Then he put on his helmet, kicked his bike to life, and rode through the gates, with 40 brothers behind him. Marcus watched until the dust settled. Then he went back inside to wait. The hours crawled. Marcus sat with Lily reading to her from a book neither of them could concentrate on. Maria kept the radio on low news channels, cycling through stories that had nothing to do with the war being fought somewhere in the Phoenix desert. Noon came and went. No word. 1 o'clock. 2. 3. Every minute stretched into eternity. Every engine sound in the distance made Marcus's heart stop. Every knock on a door made him reach for Lily, ready to run. At 4:17 p.m., the gates opened. Marcus heard it before anyone else. The rumble of returning bikes. But something was wrong. The sound was different. Fewer engines. Slower. He ran to the window. The bikes that rolled through the gates were battered. Some were missing. The riders who climbed off moved stiffly, painfully. Blood on leather. Bandages wrapped hastily around arms and legs. Duke's bike was in the lead. Duke himself was slumped forward, barely holding on. "Dad!" Marcus was out the door before anyone could stop him. He reached Duke just as the big man swung his leg over the bike and nearly collapsed. "I'm okay." Duke's voice was strained. "Just a scratch." "That's not a scratch." Blood soaked through Duke's shirt, spreading from a wound in his side. "You need a doctor." "Later. First." Duke grabbed Marcus's arm, his grip weak but desperate. "First, I need to tell you. We won. The Scorpions are done. Their leaders in jail. Their operations destroyed. You're safe. Lily's safe. Everyone's safe." "I don't care about that right now. You're bleeding." "Marcus, you promised you'd come back. You didn't say anything about coming back broken." Duke actually laughed. A pained, wet sound that scared Marcus more than the blood. "I came back. That's what matters." His eyes were starting to glaze. "Get Maria. Tell her I kept my promise." He passed out in Marcus's arms. The next hours were chaos. A doctor arrived, someone who worked with the club, who didn't ask questions, who stitched wounds and set bones and administered whatever medicines existed outside hospitals. Duke's injury was serious but not fatal. The bullet had passed through his side, missing anything vital by inches. "Lucky," the doctor said. "Incredibly lucky." Marcus didn't feel lucky. He felt terrified. He sat outside Duke's room, refusing to move, refusing to eat, refusing to do anything except wait. Lily found him there as night fell. "Is Daddy going to be okay?" "Yes." The doctor said yes. "Then why do you look so scared?" Marcus didn't have an answer. He just pulled her close and held on. Duke woke up 3 hours later. Maria was there. Lily was there. Half the club was crowded into the hallway waiting for word. But it was Marcus that Duke asked for first. "Where's my son?" Marcus pushed through to the bedside. Duke's face was pale, his movements slow, but his eyes were clear. "I thought I told you to stay inside. You were hurt. Rules didn't apply. Rules always apply. That's what makes them rules." Then I broke them. Punish me later. Duke laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh, it hurts. Then don't say stupid things. They looked at each other. This man who had given Marcus everything. This boy who had given Duke something to fight for beyond himself. You called me Dad, Duke said quietly. Before I left. I know. You meant it. Yeah, I meant it. Duke's hand found Marcus's and squeezed. Good, because I meant it too. Every word, every promise, all of it. Marcus's eyes burned. You scared me. I thought when you came through that gate. I know, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just don't do it again. Can't promise that. Life's messy. Being a family is messy. But I can promise I'll always fight to come back, no matter what. Lily climbed onto the bed, careful of her father's injury, and curled up against his good side. Family hug, she demanded. Duke reached out his other arm. Marcus hesitated only a moment before leaning in. Family hug. The three of them wrapped together, holding on like the world might try to tear them apart again, and knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it together. The compound celebrated that night, quietly, out of respect for the wounded, but celebrating nonetheless. The scorpions were gone. The threat was over. The iron wolves had protected their own. Marcus stood on the back steps, watching the stars, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The streets, the hunger, the invisibility. And then Lily, Duke, a family he'd never expected, a home he'd never dreamed was possible. Bones appeared beside him. Hell of a day. Yeah, you did good, kid, keeping calm, taking care of everyone while we were gone. I didn't do anything, just waited. Sometimes waiting is the hardest thing. Bones pulled out a cigarette, lit it, blew smoke at the stars. Duke told me what you said, before he left, called him Dad. Marcus stiffened. Is that? Okay. Okay. Bones laughed, rough and warm. Kid, you just made that man happier than I've seen him in years. He's been waiting for you to say it since the day you walked through those gates. He never said anything. He wouldn't. That's not how Duke operates. He gives people space to find their own way. Bones looked at him. But he's your dad now, really. Not just on paper. You understand that? Yeah, I think I do. Good. Bones stuck out his hand. Welcome to the family, Marcus Reyes. For real this time. Marcus shook his hand. Reyes. His new name. His real name. The name of the family that had chosen him. He went back inside, found his room, lay down on his bed. And for the first time in his life, Marcus knew exactly where he belonged. 5 years later, Marcus stood in front of his high school diploma in hand, surrounded by people he loved. 14 years old, top 10% of his class, acceptance letters from 3 different colleges already sitting on his desk at home. A future that would have been unimaginable to the hungry, invisible 8-year-old who once slept under bus shelters and ate from dumpsters. Duke stood beside him, arm around Maria, pride radiating from every line of his weathered face. Lily, now 12, confident and beautiful and still completely blind, held Marcus's other hand, her white cane tucked under her arm. You did it, she said, squeezing his fingers. I knew you would. We did it. All of us. No. Her voice was firm. You did the work. We just watched. Tommy appeared through the crowd, his own diploma held high. The gap-toothed kid who'd befriended Marcus on his first day of school had grown into a lanky teenager who still talked too much and still considered himself Marcus's best friend. Dude, we graduated. We actually graduated. Was there ever any doubt? From you, no. From me? Constant doubt, daily doubt, hourly doubt. Tommy grinned. But we made it anyway. They had made it. Against every odd, despite every obstacle, 5 years of work and struggle and growth, and here they were. Marcus looked around at the crowd, parents hugging children, teachers congratulating students, the ordinary celebration of an ordinary milestone. Except nothing about his journey had been ordinary. 5 years ago, he couldn't multiply, couldn't read above a first-grade level. Couldn't imagine a world where someone might want him to succeed. Now he was graduating with honors. Marcus Reyes. He turned. Mr. Patterson was walking toward him, older now, gray at his temples, but the same sharp eyes that had seen potential in a homeless kid who'd never held a textbook. Mr. Patterson, I told you on your first day of tutoring that you had potential. The teacher extended his hand. I was wrong. Marcus's heart stuttered. Sir, you didn't have potential. You had extraordinary capability that was just waiting for someone to unlock it. Mr. Patterson shook his hand firmly. I've been teaching for 25 years. You're the student I'll remember when I'm old and gray and boring my grandkids with stories. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You just would have taken longer. Mr. Patterson smiled. Go celebrate with your family. You've earned it. Family. Marcus looked at Duke and Maria and Lily, at Bones and Razor and the other Iron Wolves who'd shown up in forced leather vests and all drawing stares from the other parents but not caring one bit. His family. The compound threw a party that night, not the wild celebrations of years past. Marcus was only 14 after all, but something warmer. Food and laughter and stories that went late into the evening. Marcus sat on the back steps, the same steps where he'd sat so many times before, watching the stars that seemed brighter here than anywhere else in the world. Lily found him as she always did, escaping your own party, taking a break. Same thing. She sat beside him close enough that their shoulders touched. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. How different things could have been. You mean, if you hadn't found me that night? If I'd walked away? If I'd been too scared to bring you home? If your dad had thrown me out instead of taking me in? Marcus shook his head. So many things could have gone wrong. But they didn't. But they didn't. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, I think about it too sometimes. What would have happened to me if you hadn't been there? If I'd walked into traffic? If those men had gotten me instead of you, fighting them off? Don't think about that. I have to, because thinking about it reminds me how lucky I am. She found his hand and held it. You saved my life, Marcus. Not just that night, every day since. You taught me that being blind doesn't mean being helpless. You showed me that the scariest thing in the world can become the safest if you have the right people beside you. Marcus's throat tightened. Lily, I'm serious. I know I was just a scared little kid back then. I didn't understand what you gave up for me, what you risked, but I understand now. She turned her face toward him, those blind eyes somehow finding his. You're my brother. Not because Daddy signed papers or because we live in the same house. Because you chose to be. Because you kept choosing to be every single day, even when it was hard. It was never hard. Liar. Marcus laughed, wet and broken. Okay, sometimes it was hard, but it was always worth it. Yeah. They sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the party drifting out from the compound behind them. Two kids who'd found each other in darkness and somehow built a light that neither of them had known was possible. Marcus. Yeah. What are you going to do now after high school? He'd been thinking about that question for months. The college acceptance letters, the possibilities, the future that had once seemed like a fantasy, but was now real and waiting. I don't know yet, he admitted. Part of me wants to go to college, study engineering or business, build something. And the other part wants to stay here with you, with Dad, with everyone. You can do both. Can I, Marcus? Lily's voice was patient, the way it always got when she was about to say something important. You spent 3 years on the streets learning to survive. You spent 5 years here learning to live. Now it's time to learn to grow. And you can't do that if you're hiding in the compound because you're scared to leave. I'm not scared. Yes, you are. And that's okay. But you can't let fear stop you. Not after everything you've done. She squeezed his hand. Go to college. Build something amazing. Change the world. And when you're done, come back here and tell me all about it. What if I fail? Then you fail, and you try again. And you keep trying until you succeed. Lily smiled. That's what you taught me. Remember? When I was learning to navigate the compound by myself. When I fell down. When I ran into walls. When I wanted to give up. You kept telling me the same thing. What did I tell you? You told me that falling wasn't failing. Staying down was failing. And I wasn't the kind of person who stayed down. Marcus remembered that. Remembered 8-year-old Lily frustrated and crying bruises on her shins from furniture she couldn't see. Remembered kneeling beside her and saying those words and believing them with every fiber of his being. He'd believed in her. Maybe it was time to believe in himself. I'll go, he said finally. To college, I'll try. Promise. Promise. Cross your heart. Marcus took her hand and placed it on his chest over his heart. The same gesture he'd used 100 times over the years. The same promise renewed again. Cross my heart. The summer passed too quickly. Marcus spent his days in the garage working alongside Razor and Bear, learning skills he might never use but wanted to have anyway. Engines and transmissions, and the particular art of making broken things run again. You've got good hands, Razor told him, echoing what he'd said years ago. Better than good, natural. Learned from the best. Damn right you did. Lily shadowed him constantly, not wanting to waste a single moment before he left. They read together, walked together, talked about everything and nothing, building memories to carry through the distance that was coming. Duke watched them with quiet pride. His son and his daughter bonded by something deeper than blood, stronger than circumstance. The family he'd built from broken pieces and unconventional love. One evening, a week before Marcus was supposed to leave for college, Duke called him into the office. Close the door. Marcus obeyed, the familiar weight of serious conversation settling on his shoulders. Sit down. This feels like the talk you gave me before the Scorpion thing. Different talk, better circumstances. Duke leaned back in his chair. I want to show you something. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. Inside were documents official, looking covered in legal language that made Marcus's head spin. What is this? It's your trust fund. Marcus's brain stuttered. My what? When you came to live with us, I set up a fund. Contributed to it every month. So did the club voluntary donations from members who wanted to help. Duke's voice was steady, matter of fact. It's not a fortune, but it's enough. Enough for college, enough for a car, enough for an apartment when you graduate, enough to give you options. Marcus stared at the numbers on the page. Numbers that meant security. Numbers that meant freedom. Numbers that meant someone had been planning for his future, even when he couldn't imagine having one. Dad, I can't. You can and you will. Duke's voice hardened. This isn't charity, Marcus. This is investment. You've earned every penny. The work you've done around here, the way you've taken care of Lily, the example you've set for everyone in this club, that's worth more than money. This is just making sure you have what you need to keep going. But the club voted. Unanimously. Again. Duke smiled just slightly. Seems like that keeps happening with you. Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't process. 5 years ago, he'd been fighting for scraps. Now he was sitting across from his father, looking at a future that had been carefully, lovingly prepared for him. Thank you, he finally managed. I don't know how to say. Don't say anything, just use it well. Make us proud. Duke stood and walked around the desk. You've already made us proud, Marcus. Every single day. But there's more to come. I can feel it. He pulled Marcus into a hug. Not the quick, fierce embraces of crisis moments, but something slower, deeper. The kind of hug a father gives a son who's about to leave home. I love you, kid. I love you too, Dad. They held on for a long moment. Then Duke cleared his throat, wiped his eyes roughly, and stepped back. Now get out of here. Lily's been waiting to talk to you all day. Marcus found Lily in the common room, surrounded by the other kids who lived in or around the compound. She was teaching them mobility techniques, explaining how to navigate by sound and touch, her voice patient and confident. 5 years ago, she'd been the student. Now she was the teacher. Marcus, one of the younger kids, a 7-year-old named Emma, who'd lost her sight in an accident last year, waved at him. Lily says you used to carry her everywhere. I didn't carry her everywhere. He did, Lily said, grinning. He carried me for miles. I was basically a princess. You were a pain in the neck, literally. My shoulders hurt for weeks. The kids laughed. Lily stuck out her tongue in his general direction. This was the legacy that had been building without Marcus even noticing. After he and Lily had found each other, Duke had started paying attention to other invisible children. The ones who fell through cracks, the ones nobody saw. It had started small, a donation to the therapy center where Lily had been that day, then a partnership with a homeless shelter, then direct intervention when club members spotted kids who needed help. Now, 5 years later, the Iron Wolves had quietly become one of the largest supporters of homeless and disabled youth services in Phoenix. Not for publicity, not for tax breaks. Because a homeless boy had walked into their compound with a blind girl on his back and everything had changed. Marcus. Lily dismissed her students and made her way toward him. You talked to Dad? Yeah. Did he show you the thing? The trust fund. I knew he was going to do it tonight. He's been planning it for weeks. She found his arm and held on. You deserve it, you know. Every penny. I didn't do anything. You did everything. She pulled him toward the back door. Come on, I want to show you something. They walked to the far edge of the compound, to a spot Marcus had never seen Lily visit before. She navigated without her cane, counting steps, touching familiar landmarks, until they reached a low wall overlooking the desert beyond. This is where I come when I need to think, she said. When things get too loud or too much, I sit here and listen to the wind and try to figure out my problems. I didn't know you had problems. Everyone has problems, Marcus. Even blind princesses with overprotective fathers and annoying brothers. I'm not annoying. You're extremely annoying, but I love you anyway. She patted the wall beside her. Sit. He sat. The desert stretched out below them, invisible to Lily, but alive with sounds, wind across sand, distant coyotes, the hum of the highway miles away. Marcus had learned to appreciate this landscape in ways he never expected. The beauty that existed beyond sight. The peace that came from stillness. I have something for you, Lily said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object, pressing it into his palm. Marcus looked down. A coin. Old worn with a wolf's head on one side. It was my grandfather's, Lily explained. He gave it to my dad when Dad joined the club. Dad gave it to me when I turned 10, said it was for luck, said it would keep me safe. Lily, I can't take this. You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you. Her voice was firm. You're going away, to a place where I can't follow, where Dad can't protect you, where you'll have to face things alone. I won't be alone. You'll have memories and phone calls and occasional visits, but you won't have us beside you every day. Her blind eyes found his face with unsettling accuracy. This coin kept my grandfather safe through 30 years of riding, kept my dad safe through more fights than he'll admit, kept me safe when I was lost and scared and stumbling toward a highway. Marcus looked at the coin, felt the weight of it in his palm. It's supposed to keep me safe now. No, it's supposed to remind you that you're never really alone, that somewhere in Phoenix there's a 12-year-old blind girl thinking about you, praying for you, waiting for you to come home. Marcus's eyes burned. Lily, take it. Please. For me. He closed his fingers around the coin, felt the worn edges, the smooth surface, the history embedded in every scratch and mark. I'll keep it with me always. Promise. Promise. Cross my heart. They sat together as the sun went down, two siblings who'd found each other in darkness and built something beautiful from the wreckage of their broken beginnings. The day Marcus left for college, the entire compound came to say goodbye. 40 bikers, their families, the kids from the youth programs, even some of the teachers and social workers who'd become allies over the years. All of them gathered to send off a boy who'd arrived 6 years ago with nothing but dirt on his face and kindness in his heart. Duke drove him to the airport. Maria sat in the back trying not to cry. Lily sat beside her openly crying and not caring who saw. "You'll call every week," Maria said. "More if you need anything. I'll call. And you'll eat properly. No ramen noodles every meal. I'll eat properly. And if anyone gives you trouble, Maria." Duke's voice was gentle. "Let the boy breathe." They reached the airport, unloaded Marcus's bags, stood in the departure zone, none of them knowing how to say goodbye. Duke went first, a handshake that turned into a hug that went on longer than either of them expected. "Make us proud." "I will. And remember, no matter how far you go, no matter how long you're gone, I know, Dad, I know." Maria was next. Tears and promises and a bag of homemade cookies that she'd somehow hidden until this moment. "For the plane," she said, "and for whenever you get homesick. Thank you for everything, not just the cookies." "I know, baby, I know." Then Lily. She walked toward him, counting steps, her cane tapping steadily against the floor. She stopped exactly where he was standing, her face turned up toward his, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I'm not going to cry again," she said. "Yes, you are. Maybe a little." She reached up and touched his face the way she'd done that first night when she was learning him through her fingertips. "You're taller. I grew. You're stronger. I worked out. You're still my best friend. Always." She pulled him into a hug, fierce and desperate and full of everything they'd been through together. 6 years of protecting each other, 6 years of learning and growing and becoming who they were meant to be. "Don't forget me," she whispered. "Never. Not possible. And don't forget to come back." "I'll come back. I promise. Cross your heart." Marcus took her hand and placed it on his chest one final time. "Cross my heart." They held on until a voice announced final boarding. Then Marcus grabbed his bags, walked toward the gate, and turned back one last time. Duke stood tall, his arm around Maria. Lily stood between them, her face wet with tears, her hand raised in a wave she couldn't see but knew he'd understand. His family. The people who'd seen him when he was invisible. Who'd saved him when he didn't know he needed saving. Who'd given him everything and asked for nothing in return. Marcus waved back. Then he turned and walked through the gate toward a future he'd never thought possible, carrying a worn coin in his pocket and a lifetime of love in his heart. The plane lifted off into the Arizona sky. Marcus watched Phoenix shrink below him, the desert, the highways, the industrial district where a compound full of bikers had become his home. Somewhere down there, Lily was probably still standing at the airport window, listening for the sound of his plane. He touched the coin in his pocket, felt its weight, its history, its promise. 6 years ago, he'd been invisible, forgotten. A homeless 8-year-old who'd learned to survive by disappearing, by staying small, by never expecting anyone to care. Then he'd heard a little girl crying in an alley. One moment, one choice, one act of kindness that he'd never expected to change anything. And everything had changed. Marcus thought about all the invisible children still out there. The ones sleeping under bridges and eating from dumpsters. The ones who'd learned to disappear because being seen meant pain. The ones waiting for someone to look at them and see something worth saving. He'd been one of them once. Now he had a diploma and a trust fund and a family that loved him unconditionally. One person had made that difference, one moment of kindness, one choice to see someone who was invisible. The coin felt warm against his palm. He made a decision. Someday when he'd built the life he was going toward, he'd come back. Not just to visit, to help. To build something that would find the invisible children and give them what he'd been given. A chance. A family. A reason to believe they mattered. Lily had told him to change the world. Maybe that's exactly what he'd do. 4 years later, Marcus walked back into the compound. 22 years old, college graduate, business degree, and a plan that had been forming since the day he'd left. Lily heard him before anyone else. She always did. "Marcus." She ran toward him, her cane forgotten, navigating by sound and memory and pure joy. He caught her in his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing. "You're back. You're really back. Told you I would be. Took you long enough. Had some things to finish first." Duke appeared older now, gray in his beard, but the same fierce eyes that had looked at a homeless boy and seen a son. Welcome home. Good to be home. No. They gathered in the common room, Duke and Maria and Lilybones and Razor and all the others who'd become family over the years. Marcus stood at the front of the room, a folder in his hands, his heart pounding with something that felt like purpose. I want to build something, he said. Something that matters. Something that will find the kids who are invisible and show them they're not. A foundation. A network. A system that catches the children who fall through cracks before they hit the ground. He opened the folder. Plans he'd been developing for years. Partnerships with shelters and schools and social services. Funding strategies. Growth projections. A vision that was bigger than one person but had started with one homeless boy and one blind girl in a Phoenix alley. I'm calling it the Lily Foundation. Lily's hand flew to her mouth. Because that's where it started, with a 6-year-old girl who couldn't see but who saw me anyway, who trusted me when she had no reason to trust anyone, who changed my life by letting me carry her home. He looked at his sister, his best friend, the reason any of this existed. Every child deserves someone who sees them. That's the mission. That's the purpose. And with your help, with this club's help, we can make sure no kid ever has to be invisible again. The room was silent. Then Duke stood up. The Iron Wolves support this. Fully. Completely. Whatever you need. One by one, the other bikers stood, hands raised, voices affirming. The same unanimous vote that had welcomed Marcus into the family years ago, now redirected toward a vision that would change countless lives. Lily walked to the front of the room, found Marcus's hand, and held it tight. You did it, she whispered. You're changing the world. We're changing the world together. She smiled. That same bright, trusting smile she'd given him in a dark alley when she was 6 years old, and he was the only person who stopped to help. Together. 3 years after that, the Lily Foundation had helped over 2,000 homeless children find homes. 5 years after that, it had expanded to 12 cities. 10 years after that, it was national. And through it all, Marcus carried a worn coin in his pocket, a reminder of where he'd come from, a promise of what he'd built, a symbol of the family that had seen an invisible boy and decided he was worth everything. Sometimes late at night, he'd sit on the back steps of the compound, still his home, always his home, and look up at the stars. Lily would find him there, guided by sound and memory, and the bond that had never weakened across all the years and miles. Still stargazing, still thinking. About what? About how one moment can change everything. How one choice, one act of kindness, one decision to see someone who's invisible can ripple out forever. Lily sat beside him, her shoulder touching his just like always. You heard me crying in an alley. You trusted me to carry you home. And here we are. And here we are. They sat in comfortable silence, two people whose lives had been woven together by chance and choice and something that felt like destiny. Marcus. Yeah. Thank you for everything, for finding me, for carrying me, for never letting go. Marcus took her hand, squeezed it, felt the years of love and loyalty and unbreakable connection flowing between them. Thank you for letting me. The stars shone down on the compound. The wind whispered across the desert. And somewhere in the darkness, another invisible child was waiting for someone to see them. Because of Marcus and Lily, someone would. That was their legacy, their purpose, their gift to a world that had once thrown them away. And it had all started with one homeless boy, one blind girl, and a moment of kindness in a Phoenix alley. The moment that changed everything. The family that came from nothing. The love that saved them both.